Hello, how are you? I hope everyone is gesund, stark, und freilich, begashmis und beruchnis. I hope everyone is healthy, strong, and happy physically and spiritually. A guten Erev Shabbos Kodesh, a freilich and Rosh Chodesh. Today is a very special day, the first day of Rosh Chodesh Adar. Mishenichnas Adar Marben B'Simcha. I want to give you Yasher Koyach, Shever V'Idol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm here in Toronto, and I'm thanking Hashem for the simcha that we have in our family. And this is L'schus L'chosna and Kala, Shmuel Ben Meir Chaya, and Menucha Rachel Bas Chana. So they should have Arichas Yom V'Shalom Tevis HaBinyan Adiyad. So thank you, Hashem. It's also a big Shabbos, Shabbos Shkolim, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh, and we take out 3 Sifrei Torah. So today we're going to speak about something that touches us, every single one of us, very deeply, and is very essential in life. As usual, since the war began, we start with tzedakah. Hashem should help. There should be shalom in Eretz Yisrael and Mashiach now. Amen. Now we'll say a bracha, a prayer which is connected to the subject we're going to talk about today, which is material abundance, financial success. And the bracha is, like we say in Shemini Esrei, Baruch Aleinu Hashem Elokeinu Hashana Zeis V'Yeis Kol Minis Vasa L'Teva. Hashem should bench us this year in all the varieties of its produce for good. V'Sabeinu Mitovecha, satisfy us from your bounty. And bless our year like other good years for blessing. So Hashem should bless us. We should all be blessed with all blessings, health, but also parnasa. And that's what we're going to talk about today. One of the mitzvahs in this week's parsha, which this week's parsha talks about, V'asali migdash v'shechanti b'seicham. You should make me a sanctuary and I will dwell in them. So as we've spoken about this many times, it's not a command that only has relevance in the times of the Mishkan and the Beis HaMikdash, but like everything in Torah, there has to be a lesson and a relevance for our daily lives today. Torah is eternal. So thank God for Chasidus. Pnimius HaTorah teaches us the inner significance and the meaning of all these things and what it means in our avodas Hashem. So, in this week's parsha, amongst the utensils, amongst the vessels, and amongst the furnishings that Hashem commanded the Jews, the Yidden, to make, was the shulchan, translated as the table. There were 12 loaves of bread that were placed on the shulchan, and they baked it on Friday, and the kohanim, the following Shabbos, would eat it after mincha. So, first of all, the shulchan, it says, also had gold, overlaid with gold. V'tzipiso shulchan, you should make a table, atzishitim, and then the next pasuk says, v'tzipiso yisizov toir, you shall overlay it with pure gold. And then it says, v'tzipiso mizgeres, you should make a frame for the table. It also says you should make a zerzov, a gold rim all around it. And then it also says, there's a couple of psukim that talk about the shulchan. V'nasata al shulchan lechem ponim lefonai tomid. You shall place showbread on the table to be before me at all times. So, one more thing we'll say before we get into the questions and the explanations is that when it talks about a gold rim, a crown, on this table, Rashi says, Simen lekeser malchus, a symbol of the crown of royalty. This was the gold rim that was around it. Shashulchan shem esher ugdula. The shulchan is a mark of wealth and importance. As we say, as people say in reference to wealth, Shulchan Malachim, the royal table. So what's the relevance? What does it mean? And what's the lessons for us on our avodas Hashem? And what does it mean that the table represents Shulchan Malachim? So, in general, the idea of the Mishkan represents how a Yid elevates the physical, and there's the meeting place, the encounter, the fusion of the finite and the infinite. That's really the whole mission statement of a Yid, is lahamshich es hashchina do lemata ba'aretz v'asiso li mikdash, make for me a sanctuary, v'shachanti b'seichem, and I will dwell in them, is really a reflection of the entire mission of a Yid, as the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, v'zeh kol ha'adam v'sachlis b'riyosei uv'riyas kol ha'il m'salyenu v'sachtoinim liyas lo yidira zoi b'sachtoinim. Not only is the idea of the Mikdash a specific place in Eretz Yisrael where there was divine revelation and miracles, as we'll discuss today, but it represents the entire mission of a Jew on this planet Earth. Every single time when you're learning Torah, right now, we're speaking words of Torah at this table, in this room, we're bringing down godliness. We don't see the full impact now, but when Mashiach comes, we will see in a way that we can point with our fingers and see how we elevated this world and we made this world a dwelling place for Hashem. There's godliness all over, and by us doing the right things, we reveal this godliness. Before we continue, there's two Gemaras that talk about the Shulchan, which discuss the miraculous revelation of Hashem, which were through the Shulchan. One of the Gemaras is a Gemara in Yuma Daf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph, which says that Kol Goyin Shemagiyoi Kazayis, there was some Koyanim that they ate a Kazayis, the size of an olive, and they were satisfied with that from the Lechem Aponim when they ate this bread. And then it says Yesh Eichlei V'Savea, so they ate that and they were satisfied. But then it says V'yesh Eichlei U'Moiser, they took a tiny bit, and this tiny bit satisfied them. And this was a miracle, that even a kohen who took one small tiny piece of this lechem upon him, this was enough to make them totally satisfied. How can you take a tiny bit and become satisfied? That was a miracle. But then there's another Gemara, and this is a Gemara in Menachos, which says something phenomenal, which shows you how general the message of the Shulchan is. And it says, when the Yidden were Oile Regel, when they made a pilgrimage to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, the Gemara says, Magbiin, in the Gemara Menachos, Daf Chav Tes Amud Aleph, Magbiin Oisei La'Oile Regolim. They brought out the Shulchan to the people that were Oile Regel. Umarim Lehem Lechem Aponim, and they showed the Yidden the Lechem Aponim, and they told the Yidden, see your affection, how much you beloved to Hashem. And the Gemara says, how is it that we looked at the Lechem upon this was a reflection of how Hashem loves us. Kidder Bishur ben Levi, the Omer Bishur ben Levi, as the Bishur ben Levi explained, this is the Lashon of the Gemara. Neis Godel Nasa Belechem Aponim. A great miracle used to happen with the Lechem Aponim. So this is not only that the Gemara says Nes, a miracle. We're calling it a Neis Godel, was with the Lechem Aponim. And what was that? Silukoi Kisiduroi. When it was removed from the table, when the Kohanim took it Shabbos, after it was there for an entire week, because the lechem aponim was baked on Friday, then it was put into they would change old bread with new bread. Old bread means it would be there for an entire week on the shulchan, and on Shabbos, when they took it off to eat from it, the kohanim used to eat from it, they would replace it with newly fresh baked from Friday. And the Gemara says, Neis Godel. What was the Neis Godel? Silukai Kisidurei. When they took it off, Silukai, when they took it off the Shulchan, Kisidurei, it was as warm and hot as it was when they put it down the week before, like fresh. Could you imagine? You take fresh bread from the oven, you leave it out for a week, and it's as fresh when you took it out of the oven the week before. And that's Shenemar Losum Lechem Cham B'Yemi Lochei. There's a passage that says that to place hot bread on the day when it was taken away, and from here we learn out, B'Yemi Lochei, at the day that it was taken away, it was still hot. So we see that the Gemara is phenomenal because first of all, we're calling it a Neis Gadol, and second of all, the Gemara should say on this the Lashon, Re'u chibaschem lefnei hamokim. Re'u means it was a demonstrated. It was clear, you could see it through this miracle. And we're saying that in this miracle, we see how beloved the Jewish nation is for Hashem. So who cares? I'm saying you could ask. So it's a small miracle. So the bread is as warm as it was from the week before as when you take it out. So what's the big deal? Why are we saying that this is this like, what's so monumental about it? Like in this is reflected chibaschem lefnei hamokim. And the answer is because the shulchan and the lechem hapanim represents the whole idea of one of the basic necessities of life. There's health and there's financial parnasa. The idea of the shulchan is the way Hashem takes care of Jews, parnasa of the Jewish nation, and not only that, but in a way that's wealthy. Shulchan Malochem. That's what the table represents. So what does it mean? So first of all, let's start with the word. It's explained in Chassidus in many places that the lechem hapanim is similar to the mon. The Rebbe explains in Likutei Sichos in a couple of places that the mon that fell down from the sky, we have a similar idea. It's called lechem min hashamayim. And the Rebbe explains that lechem min hashamayim doesn't mean bread, like our bread, but that instead of lechem min haaretz, it came down min hashamayim. No. Lechem min hashamayim meant that's a himmeldike bread. It's a heavenly bread. What does it mean it's a heavenly bread? That with this bread we saw how it comes from heaven. And therefore there were very many other miracles that were connected to it, as we once spoke about this. So it's the same thing over here. Lechem hapanim, which represents bread that was made by the Kohanim, or not necessarily, but we're not getting to that now, because it speaks about a certain family where experts are making this bread. But in any case, the point is, we take this bread, but it was put into the Mishkan, and miracles happened to this bread. Number one, that a Kohen could take a tiny, tiny bit, and he was satisfied. Number two, this miracle that the Gemara says, Neis Gadol. So the same thing is true when we look at our material success, parnasa, livelihood. We have to understand that even though we're making a vehicle, we make a conduit, but really it's Hashem which is giving us the blessing and gives us the success. The only reason why we have to go to work is just to make an avenue, a portal, where Hashem's blessings could transfer, could travel to us into this planet Earth. But really it's all Hashem. And that's the idea of Parnasa. And this is also explained, the Rebbe says in many places, the famous Gemara that says that a Yid, through planting, we see the idea of faith in Hashem. The Gemara says that a Yid is maimin b'chayei lobim v'zireh. He believes in the Eibush and he plants. So the Rebbe asks the famous question in the Sichos, if we want to bring out Jewish faith, why don't we bring it out through planting? Why don't we just say, you want to see Jewish faith? We could have a person standing in a field, puts his hands behind the back, and goes, oh no, Adoi Shem, Moshiach no. He prays to Hashem, lightning strikes, rainfall comes, and tomatoes grow from the ground. That would be faith. That we see that a Jew has to do nothing, and nevertheless, miracles happen, and he gets sustenance. We say no. The Jewish way is maimin b'chayei lomim v'zireh. He sees Hashem, Havayu hu elikim, Havayu v'elikim kul echad. When he looks at nature, He understands that's not really nature. It's just that the Eibishter wants for also the Migdash v'shechanti b'seicham. He wants this combination, this merging of the physical and the spiritual to prove that it becomes totally one. The nature and the supernatural. That when we look at nature, we don't see nature, we see the supernatural. And that's the whole point. That on one side of the street, we have Tom, Dick, and Harry. That he takes seeds and he plants it and he plows and it rains. And he looks at it, that what was the cause that there's growth? It's because he did it through his planting and through his hard work. Then we have another side of the street. We have Rav Shimon Levi, that he takes a seed and he puts it into the ground, and it rains and it grows tomatoes. But he knows that it has nothing to do with the rain. It has nothing to do with his planting. It has to do with the Eibishter. The Eibishter commanded that you should do things in a natural way. So therefore you created the conduit, the avenue, the pathway, the portal for Hashem's blessings to come down into this world. But the word is Maimin B'chayilomim V'zeireya. You see it as a Gilui Elokus. It's a divine revelation. And that's the whole point of a Yid. You're in Tachtoinim, you're in planet Earth, but you make a Dira B'Tachtoinim. You reveal the godliness by praying, and you say, Baruch Aleinu, as Hashanah Hazois, V'yeis Komini Suvuosa L'Toiva, that you see and you attribute the blessings to Hashem and all the prados. That's what the Eibishter wants. And that's how you bring out godliness. How it's not by breaking the laws of nature, but by showing how nature itself is in harmony with Hashem. And that's the whole idea of a Yid on this planet Earth. Like we said, V'zeh kol ha'adam, the whole mission, the whole purpose, the whole meaning of life is to show how the physical itself, even in its natural state of existence, becomes a vehicle for godliness. So, in general, the shulchan represents a table, and the shulchan represents our eating food. Not that we live to eat, we eat to live, we elevate our food. And just to connect it to some practical lessons. First of all, we see from the Rebbe, by every single Farbrengen, the Rebbe would say at the end of the Farbrengen, Divas daf macha bracha achreino, all those that have to make an after blessing, a blessing they make after we eat, will probably most definitely make the blessings. So here you have the Rebbe, Tzaddik Gomer, connected to the highest levels, speaking by a Farbrengen about the loftiest esoteric concepts and subjects, Maimorim, Kabbalah, and at the end of the Farbrengen, what's the sum total of the Farbrengen? Divas daf macha bracha achreino, v'omastam zicha macha bracha achreino. Talking about the food. I'm blessing Hashem for the food that we ate during this Farbrengen. So we have the Tzaddik Hadoyer, the leader of his generation, pointing out to something which seems so small, making a blessing after we ate food. But that's the whole point of everything. The bottom line of everything is to bring the godliness into the food and make a blessing, and after eating, to thank Hashem for the wine or for the piece of mezonus cake that we had by the Farbrengen. So that's number one. And the Rebbe was super careful about it. So it's a phenomenal lesson just in that alone. So therefore, wherever you are and you're by a table and people have partaken some food, you can say, be like the Rebbe. Just remind everyone, Divas daf macha bracha achreina, v'omastam zicha macha bracha achreina. Another thing the Rebbe spoke about was the table, the Friday night meal. I'm talking to myself and I'm talking to you, and I'm saying a piece of advice, talking about the shulchan. Our table represents and is connected to the table, the idea of the table in the Mishkan. It's also connected to the idea of the Mizbeach. But in general, it's the idea of connecting the physical food, our material sustenance and abundance, and we'll use this opportunity to bless Kol B'nei Yisrael B'chol Makom Shehem should have Ashirus, which the Rebbe also spoke about. Parshas Terumah, this week's Parsha, Tov Shinun Beis, the Rebbe said we see from the Pasuk that says that every Jew should make a contribution of Zov, Kesef, or Nechoshes, gold, silver, and copper. And the Rebbe said, from here we see, excuse me, that the pasuk starts with Zov. That means every Jew has gold in abundance. Amen. Every single Yid should have Zov, Kesef, and Nechoshes. And the Rebbe said, we see from here, as Teiras Emes paskint up, that here the Teiras Emes gives a verdict that every Jew should be rich, monetarily speaking. Pashat begashmis. Amen. But we should also take a lesson. And the Rebbe spoke a sikha about the family unit. That it's the Friday night meal, the Shabbos meal, which fosters and strengthens the family unit. And in a way, the Friday night meal, the Shabbos meal, is where we see a reflection of what's the whole idea of life in Judaism, in Yiddishkeit. Shabbos, we make Kiddush, there's Einik Shabbos, you could partake in having not only necessities but even luxuries, but it's all channeled to a higher purpose. We sing Nigunim, the Rebbe says, and it's explained in the Chassidus, that represents like the Levium in the Beis HaMikdash, they sang songs. We say Divrei Torah, the Rebbe says and brought down from Chassidus, that represents the Kohanim. We used to say verses of Torah, and we give blessings to Hashem, bracha achreina, brachas the whole time. So we see the fusion of the finite, physicality, good food, good wine, and it's all elevated to a higher purpose to Hashem. And with that is the family unit singing songs, becoming closer, and the family and the Shabbos spirit, full of warmth, full of love, full of unity. Maybe she should help. First of all, Freilich and Shchedish, Mishinichnas Adar Mar Simcha, Simcha Gerer Simcha, L'chol B'nei Yisrael. We should have more and more Simcha, and we should all make good resolutions about the Tish, the Shulchan, how we conduct ourselves the whole week with brachas, brachas rishenis, brachas achrenis, and especially to try to elevate the Shabbos table. It should be like a Shabbos table. We sing Nigunim and we speak words of Torah, and it will definitely be in a conduit, which is the whole idea of the Shulchan, is that we have to do our thing. Maimin b'chai lomin v'zereah. The idea of the Shulchan is, in general, we make a conduit, a vehicle, a keli, hishtadlus, and that brings, because we're following Hashem's words, the great blessings to no end to every single person. Posting from Toronto, Good Shabbos, Afreilich and Chodesh, Mashiach now.